Right, and we're just expecting Charlie and Jared, our new speakers, to join the webinar. Mm, hello, Charlie.
Hi, Anna.
Hello, Jared.
Hello.
Right, and we're starting our next session where we will discover how to achieve process excellence with AI, a financial services case study. And I'm delighted to introduce our next speakers, Charlie McGillian, Customer Success Manager at FlowForma, and Jared Newman, Chief Technical Officer at FlowForma. Welcome both.
Thanks, Anna. Good to be here.
Thanks. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, it's great to be here today. I hope my slides are coming through loud and clear, are they?
Yes, all's good.
Good. Okay, great. Well, listen, I suppose just as we kick off, I'd like to just give you a quick introduction to FlowForma and who we are. So in FlowForma, we're all about process automation. So what we do is we provide a solution which is all about enabling both business and IT users to automate processes at scale. So we've been doing this for a number of years, and our product contains all the typical elements that you would require to automate processes such as data capture, workflow, document generation, communications integration, and data insights. And of course, more recently, we've added to the product our AI capabilities. So today, what we're going to do is talk to you about our case study, which we're going to highlight some of the AI capabilities and how they were used in one of our customers. So the AI features that we have added are all fairly practical and designed really to help accelerate your overall process journey and to improve process adoption and process automation within your organization. So as a first step, I'm going to hand over to Charlie, who will talk us through the case study we have today, and then I'm going to come back and just show you some of the AI features and how they were used in this particular customer.
That's great. Thank you, Jared. So yeah, just expanding on that. So AI is making a real difference for our customers. And suppose in today's webinar, I'm excited to share with you a case study from one of our clients who has made great progress in utilizing AI and accelerating process automation. Unfortunately, they are a bit media shy. So for today's, the case study is anonymized. So quick overview on our customer. They are a wealth management firm that serve high net worth individuals and investors. With offices across the UK and Ireland, they specialize in high trust services, investment advice, and retirement planning. Now we'll have a look at some of their challenges. The customer initially came to FlowForma when they'd hit breaking point following 18 months of solid growth. The increase they were having in taking on new customers was creating some cracks in their operations. They turned to us as they were still heavily reliant on a lot of manual processes, which was a definitive risk. Their MD and system analyst reached out to us as their exec team was looking for new ways to modernize. They were drowning in bottlenecks and email chains and disconnected systems, which was having a big impact on their customers and employees. And now I'm just going to hand over to Anna for a quick poll.
Yeah, very good. So you can see that onboarding is up there as one of the key processes and general administration processes as well. So yeah, we would see that a lot of our customers would generally be using FlowForma for onboarding type processes, whether it's employee onboarding, customer onboarding, whatever it actually is. And we think that AI, particularly in those areas, can make a big difference. I think it helps eliminate some of the questions and all around what exactly is involved in onboarding in each particular use case. And what also is going to do is it's going to help accelerate the overall creation of those things. But also we see approvals, compliance, procurement, they're all very typical areas. Compliance obviously continues to grow in terms of having structured processes in place so that you have the backup information that you need to make sure that you are compliant, and also to make sure it's standard rules and processes and procedures, etc., are adhered to. So yeah, very interesting. Okay. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about how this particular customer went about automating some of their processes and meeting some of their challenges. So as Charlie explained, the customer is very much at breaking point. A lot of business challenges facing them as they grew. And this obviously is not uncommon in organizations that are growing rapidly. Often processes don't evolve at the same speed as the organization. So that can be a challenge. So as you launch into an automation process, and these guys were quite ambitious. They wanted to automate quite a lot of their processes as quickly as they possibly could to help overcome these challenges. I mean, the alternatives were, increase their costs by hiring more people, or potentially let some of their process delivery capabilities decline. So they didn't want to do either of those things. So they established 3 principles. So the first one was they were going to go with an iterative type approach. So the overall idea here is that the old adage of perfection is the enemy of progress comes into play. And what they really wanted to do was get to a stage where they had processes that were automated, that were good enough to launch internally. And they could launch them, collect feedback from that, and then use the data that was collected from those to actually further improve the processes. So this involved things like rapid prototyping, getting to a stage where the process was good enough, getting it out there, getting feedback and improving it. So the next thing they were keen on was that it was business led. So the subject matter expertise was in the core business organization and with their core business players. So what they did though was they didn't necessarily want all of those people to be tied up building out processes. So they enabled them by aligning IT resources with them. So the IT people were able to work closely with the business people to develop prototypes so that they could review them. But one of the key decisions they made was they wanted it to be AI first. So what this meant was that they wanted to use AI to save time wherever they could. They didn't have a core competency within their organization of process automation. They felt AI could fill in this gap for them and help them accelerate their overall process automation journey. They also were keen to use AI to eliminate some of the kind of more mundane tasks that people were doing, so that these could be completely automated. They tried to do some of this in the past, but hadn't been particularly successful with it. But they saw AI as being able to take over some of these tasks. And this, of course, frees up time for the team so that they can carry on and do more valuable work. So I have a few kind of screenshots here of just what they were actually doing. So in this particular one here, what they're using is our Copilot to address one of their processes. So this is a financial fact find. So with Copilot, they can simply interact with Gen AI and ask it questions and find out what key things in a particular process are. So in this case, they asked it to build out a financial fact find process for them. And as you can see here, it's just scrolling up on the screen. What it does is identifies all the various steps that might be in the process, but it also identifies the data points that you might want to collect about the process at each step. So they could then continue to interact with Copilot, or alternatively, at this stage, they can actually just build the process. So when they went to build the process, what that does is it takes the information that's been provided in Copilot, and what it's going to do, what it has done, is it's just created a number of steps to a sequence of steps, which really is the process. And then behind the scenes, it's also created the rules that are actually needed to automate that process. And it also has created the various data points that need to be collected at each step in the process. So what they were then able to do was to iterate through that, and they were able to just improve the process to a point where they were actually happy with it, that it represented what they needed to do from a financial fact find point of view. So once they were happy with it, they were in a position where they could actually launch it out there to their team, and they could then start interacting with it and using it. So in the next one, what we have here is another example. So they'd already been through some process mapping exercises previously. So what they had here was a map of an existing process. And what they wanted to do was simply use this to accelerate the creation of a new process. So what you see in this example here is, it'll loop back around in a second. You'll see it actually us loading up a sketch of a process. So in this case, it's just a hand-drawn sketch, but it can actually be something like a photo of a whiteboard, or it could be something like a Visio diagram output, or any sort of structured process diagram that you actually want. And what Copilot does in this case is it interprets the drawing or the diagram. And what it does is identifies the steps that are depicted in the diagram and the sequence of those steps. And again, it adds a bit of value by then identifying the kind of data points that might be collected at each step in the process. And these aren't just simply pieces of text or anything like that. They can actually be quite complex data structures. So it can, for example, it can identify that a matrix of data is needed at a particular step, and it's capable of building that out. So in this example here, they were able to kind of go from a diagram of a process that they'd already built out to having something that was operational very quickly. And I suppose what this really does is when you're working closely with business people, what they found was that it really brought the process to life. So while you're working on a whiteboard or mapping processes out in drawing and going backwards and forwards through iterations of refining that, it all seems a bit theoretical. But when you're able to actually build a process as quickly as this, then suddenly the theory comes into practice. And then you can actually get a better feedback and interaction from the user group as they see how their process is actually going to look. So, I mean, within this very brief demonstration here, we've gone from having a diagram of process to having a working process within a number of minutes. So, I mean, what they would have then done is taken that further and refined that process to make it a little bit more appropriate to the organization, potentially adding more data points or adding more rules, etc. in there. So the next thing they were keen on doing, I mentioned at the start, was automating some of their processes. So, sorry, some of the tasks in their processes. So what they were doing here was simply using a capability we built, which we call our agent capability. And what this is again, it's AI driven, and it is simply a way of instructing an AI agent to carry out tasks. So we designed this so that it can carry out fairly straightforward tasks that are carried out on a repetitive basis. So there's a high volume of. So in this case here, we're just asking it to extract a passport number from the image of a passport. So this is a fairly common use case. We get a lot of customers using this rule to do this, and it really simplifies the whole idea of data extraction and data collection. So in this case, we're just taking the passport number from an image of a passport that has been loaded up. So this is part of their KYC checks. And then what we're doing is instructing the agent to extract this passport number and to give us back the number, just the number, and no other text or any other information. So what this allows them to do is automate kind of tasks that are being done previously. Previously, somebody would look at the image and they look at the passport number and they would type it into a form. So what this does is it automates this task. We still have a human in the loop, so we can validate the information, but it significantly speeds up the rate at which these forms can actually be processed. Okay. So Charlie, I'll hand back over to you, and you can just maybe talk about some of the key wins here.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Jared. So what I always say to our customers is that they should automate for outcomes, which is exactly what this customer has done very well. The clear focus on what they wanted to achieve. We agreed their KPIs and they onboarded to our platform. There's just a great quote here from their MD. If you look at some of the numbers around us, they were able to cut their approval times by 65%, which not only in turn freed up their admin, but it let them scale using FlowForma without the added stress. They were able to digitize 30 processes in under 6 months. It was really has saved them thousands of hours in annual process admin. And we're just going to pop back into a second poll here, so I'll hand it over to you, Anna. Excellent, thank you, Anna. So today we shared a financial services case study of one of our customers. I know there's a lot of people on this webinar from healthcare, construction, manufacturing, and various other industries. Suppose FlowForma process automation platform is used across all sectors great success. So our customers regularly witness a snowball effect. Once prospects see the results from automating a few processes, the news travels fast across the business, and all of a sudden ideas really do come to the forefront. And it's only a matter of time before a lot of processes is digitized across the business. So I'm just going to leave this slide up for a second or two, and I'll give you an indication of what can be achieved in the various areas of your business and process automation. Excellent, and that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Charlie and Jared. And I would like to remind our viewers that this session is live. So if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A box. We also have some free resources for you to look at and download. So don't miss out on this session resource hub, where you can explore exclusive content and case studies from our sponsors, and including PEX Network State of the Industry Survey. Right. Let's start with the questions. We have a backlog of processes to automate, thinking Copilot would be very useful for this. Any tips?
I'll take that one. Yeah, so Copilot really is it's a natural language prompt selection, so it can be used from everybody across the business. So you don't necessarily have to have an IT background. It's a question of using natural language and getting started on it. So it will really help you to define a process, build the bones for you. And then for you then to go on and refine that process and add questions and rules around that. So it's a matter of finding out what areas that you do want to potentially digitize would be just the key starting point.
Yeah, just another point on that, I think, is that what Copilot's doing is it's using obviously the large knowledge base that sits behind it with AI, large language models and Gen AI. So that has access to a huge amount of information. So we found is that for organizations that are looking for a bit of inspiration or looking for a way to start automating particular processes, this can be a real accelerator, but it also kind of removes blocks. So you can quickly get to a point where you've started off on your process automation journey. You've built your first process. It's not going to be perfect, but you can engage with the organization and then tune it to what you want. So if you have a big backlog of processes, you don't necessarily have them all defined out and designed out. Copilot's a great place to start.
Right. How does it differ from options like Power Automate in O365?
Yeah, from our point of view, what FlowForma is very specifically focused around process automation. So it's not a general application build tool in the same way that Power Automate is. So it's a one-stop shop where everything is together to allow you automate processes, and it has all the various tools and capabilities that are needed to automate processes. So I think the main differentiator is the process focus. FlowForma has been focused on this area for quite a few years, and our product has evolved and developed to make sure that we can automate processes in an effective way. So it has all the capabilities you expect to see in a process automation or workflow type solution.
Right. A question, is there a mobile app for FlowForma?
Yes, there is. Yeah. So that's used by quite a few of our customers, particularly those who are participating in processes and are out and about in their organization. So yeah, it's quite popular and allows you to participate in a process, complete forms, etc., while working away from the office on your mobile device. Right.
How does FlowForma support compliance and regulation?
Yeah, so there's a lot could be said about that one, but I think just generally as a workflow product, as a process automation environment, it defines structured processes which must pass certain criteria to actually progress from one step to another, which is key in a compliance and regulation environment. So this might involve certain pieces of information being there, but it also might involve other people approving various steps, etc., within the process. But in the background, what it's doing is collecting a huge amount of information about the actual process itself, the data that's been collected in the process, and the people who participated in it. And through our insights capability, you have full access to all of that data, and you can track and trace everything that has actually happened through the process using that.
Right. Another question from Bill. What happens to the data once consumed in the AI discovery process?
So nothing happens to it. The data is used. So we don't use the data for any further training or anything like that. The data is effectively used to interact with OpenAI, which is what we're using in the background, and that generates a response for us. But once that response has been generated, it's available to you, the user, and then from that you can actually build out your process. And once you build out your process, then that data is part of your overall process definition, and that remains in your overall MS365 environment.
Right. What types of process diagrams or forms can I upload? Are there specific formats that are supported?
Well, this tends to evolve a little bit, but at the moment, we support PDF formats, which is obviously pretty common, and we support most image formats as well. So between the two of those, we can handle a wide variety of process type diagrams, whether they be photographs, whether they be created using tools like Visio or whatever you're actually using to draw out your processes, or if you're just sketching them out on a piece of paper, whatever you want to do. So they're the two, they're the main formats that we support at the moment, PDF and image formats.
Right. Another comment. Love the case study. Who's the best person to drive AI automation in a business?
Okay. I'll say something about that too. So the from our point of view, I suppose the ideal team to actually drive that is a kind of hybrid. If you can have the business people there who have expertise in the process they're trying to automate, and if you can combine them with some level of IT resource to actually not so much to build the process, but to do things like potentially handling the integration that might actually be required, then that's ideal. But a FlowForma is very much designed and has always been designed to be a no-code product. And what we encourage people to do is we encourage business users to actually use the product to automate processes. AI further enhances that because you're effectively communicating and building your process using natural language prompts. So that's quite an easy thing to do.
Right. There's a question about onboarding. What does onboarding of a product look like? Is much training needed on these AI features?
Yeah,
Yeah, go on ahead, Charlie.
I can take that, yes, as part of my team anyway. So in terms of the onboarding process, it's pretty straightforward. Once we work with the client in terms of timelines, set expectations, we aim to have a client on live and up and running within 6 weeks. However, that will be brought in a lot sooner now with the AI features deployed. So that process would look probably within a few weeks of having that person up and live.
Right. And another question. Just a second. How does IT support audit trails and process transparency?
Yeah, I suppose I covered off a little bit of that on the compliance side of things. So the main thing is about collecting information for everything that actually happens in the process. And we sort of see two sets of data there. There's the actual operational side of the process, which is all what happened, where, when, and who did it, and that kind of information. And then we also have the business data that might be collected. So, for example, in our financial onboarding or financial fact-finding case, there might be a list of assets and their values, etc. So it's really about collecting all that data and making it available in our insights module. It gives you a full audit trail that really allows you kind of drill down from top to bottom to actually understand exactly what happened at each step in the process.
Right. A question from Kulveer. Who owns the process tools once they are in place? If we start with FlowForma, are we tied in forever?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think each process tool has its own distinct kind of capabilities. So the process tool sits within your MS365 environment, and the build processes, etc., the interaction with Copilot is all carried out by our end user customer organization. And the processes then are implemented and run and execute within FlowForma's application.
That's brilliant. We have 2 minutes left, and a final question. Can FlowForma identify and list down the different risks within a process that is to be automated?
Yeah, so I mean, again, this is the kind of interaction that you get with Copilot. So if we're looking at specific risks in a process or areas that might need to be tightened up, in my little example there of building out the various processes, you can further interact with Copilot and ask it questions. So you can then start asking it, well, what might be weak areas of this process, or where might I need more controls, or security is actually built in. So you are able to interact with and draw more information out of it. And that's one of the things that people really like, is they can kind of have a conversation about their process to actually get to a point where they're happy enough that they want to build it out and give them something they could potentially operate with.
Right, brilliant. Thank you so much, Charlie and Jared. That's been a really interesting presentation from you. Before we finish, we have 1 minute left. Would you like to say anything to our viewers?
Yeah, no, just thanks very much for your time. It's a very exciting time in the whole process space with AI and all of the things that can actually do with that, and it helps, I think, overcome some of the process blockers people have had in the past.
Excellent, and thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today, and hopefully look forward to speaking to you all in the future.